kind of wild that we're a week and a half into the new year. On the 1st of January was when I ran away from the guy with a knife, it turns out a gun, on the subway, and that was last week's video. And then on the 8th, exactly a week later, is when I had to leave LA because of the fires and come back to New York, which we will get into that because a lot of people were asking me exactly what happened. So many of my comments, with the best of intentions, keep saying bad things happen in threes, so I just have to be ready for the third one, and that has given me a bit of paranoia. As you saw from the start of this video, any money made from this video will be donated directly to California Fire Relief. I'm gonna put a lot of resources in the description below for you to help, and places where if you are in need of assistance, you can also look at these resources for help. I am safe, I'm very grateful, I'm very privileged to be able to go to another place I call home. My apartment is okay in LA as well. As I was leaving, I saw the Hollywood Hills fire start moving closer, so I got out as that was happening. But all in all, I'm okay, my things are okay, so really the goal is to highlight what's been happening, who has been affected by this, and ways you can help, while also just telling you what happened on my end. I do have a bit of cough from the 2 days of being there under the smoke. I have read that the best thing to do is to have an HEPA filter, if you have one and if you're able to get one, but if not, staying indoors with the doors and the windows closed and having the heat, fan, or air conditioning on to filter the air, because a lot of air conditioning units have a filter built into that. But let me tell you what I experienced. On the first day that there was a lot of wind, I remember I checked the weather, which I do every morning before I go outside. I feel like that's a pretty normal thing to do. I saw that there was kind of the like wind sign for all hours of the day, and the weather app had a notice. You should be at high alert for wildfires today because in heavy wind conditions, that's possible, and LA hasn't gotten rain in, felt like significant rain in over a year. And I had experienced LA wildfires before. When I first moved with Ian in 2020, the sky was red within the first week of us moving. But that was the last time I had experienced wildfires in LA at a volume like that. So I checked the weather app and I saw it was very windy and that there was a wildfire notice, but that has happened before where there's been a wildfire notice and then nothing really happens, or there's a small one that's able to be put out and no one gets hurt, no one loses anything. And so I clocked it and then decided to get ready and go get my coffee. And as I was driving to go get my coffee, I was driving up the hill, getting onto Sunset Boulevard, and I saw that it was getting really smoky around me. And when I made it to the top of the hill, I saw right next to me, ash was just falling down from the sky around it. It must have just begun because as soon as I pulled off to the side to the coffee shop, which is pretty close to there, the road started getting closed down and fire trucks were going to put it out. They put it out relatively quickly. When I left the coffee shop, ash was all over my car and the wind was starting to pick up. I remember feeling how windy it was getting and how when I was sitting at a stoplight, occasionally my car would sway because of the wind. And then I made it home and didn't hear much else of what was going on until I got an alert for the beginning of the Palisades fire. And at that point, again, you hope that everything's gonna be okay. You hope they caught the fire early and that they're able to put it out. But as I was leaving a friend's apartment that day, I look out at the end of the hallway and see this smoke coming from the Pacific Palisades area. And at that point, I started being prepared for more chaos to happen, but I wasn't sure exactly what amount. Again, I'm living in an area that usually isn't as susceptible to these wildfires. My family was starting to check in, make sure I was okay. It was spreading across the news because very soon after the Palisades fire broke out, the Pasadena fire also broke out. And those are on two opposite sides, basically, of where I live. And the worry and the fear is always that they'll eventually move inward. But we heard that the Palisades fire, the wind was blowing out towards the ocean, so it was more growing towards the side rather than inward. And Pasadena is very far away. That being said, we were hearing that the wildfires were moving at like full football fields within minutes or seconds or something incredibly quick because winds in certain areas were about 90 miles per hour. So my parents were checking in and making sure I was okay. Friends were checking in and making sure I was okay. I looked at flights that morning just to see if it was a viable option, and there were a lot of flights available. But naively, in those situations, my response a lot of the time is to just expect that I will be okay and that things will work out, which is odd because I have anxiety in so many other different facets of my life, and I have all of this health anxiety where I think I'm gonna die immediately. But in these situations, I remain calm. It was similar to the subway situation where I just felt like, we're gonna be okay, we're gonna get out of this. And then of course, as soon as I actually get out of the subway, I start sobbing. Similarly, as soon as I landed in New York, I started crying here. Went to bed that night and then woke up at about 1 a.m. to the power going out. And I know the power went out because I sleep with like 2 different fans on and a sound machine. And so everything just went silent, and I'm a very hot sleeper, so I immediately started feeling warm and was like, oh, what's going on? Clocked that the power was out, so I decided to open my windows. And of course, all I could hear outside my window was some man yelling the F slur over and over again. And so that wasn't making me feel very restful. Eventually he moved along. Not too much longer later, the power came back on. But I did not fall asleep while the power was off because I was just starting to get very anxious, because when the power went out, all you could hear was the wind whistling by super loud and super quickly, and sirens occasionally in the distance. I went on social media to see what was happening currently with the fire. All I knew was that the power was out and things could get worse. Thankfully, I had this power bank, which I talked about it in a TikTok, so I knew I would have power for a while if the power did stay out. But at that point, we were going into what was unknown. And then when I woke up in the morning, I went back over to a friend's place where they had a rooftop, and we looked at what was happening, and you could see nothing had gotten better. At that point, my family was getting really worried. My dad was encouraging me to get on a flight to go back home to New York, but I don't want to take up a spot on the road when other people might need to do that more than I did. And so I resisted for a while and was just kind of sitting watching things go down. I didn't really do anything that day because everything was slowly coming to a halt. We were starting to see videos of people losing their houses. We were starting to see all the videos of people running out of their cars. And so it was starting to feel a little scary. And at that point, my dad texted me with an energy and a tone that I haven't received since I was maybe in high school. He told me to leave LA and was not going to take another answer at that point. And at that point, I agreed to it. There was still a lot of open seats from LA to New York, and LAX was operating as normal. So I thought, okay, the worst I can do is get a flight. If I don't end up needing it by tonight, then I won't go. I can get a flight credit, but let me just do this to make my dad happy. And then I was actually supposed to originally go on a date with someone out to dinner somewhere, and then we pivoted to maybe just making something together at one of our apartments because my flight was also at 10:40. So I told him, I'm just gonna have to leave around this time, but we can still do this. But about an hour before we were supposed to meet up for the date, he texted me a screenshot and basically said, are you seeing this? And I looked out my window. On one side, didn't see anything, and then I turned to the other side and saw the fire that was happening that had apparently started about 10 minutes before this. And then someone sent me a video from their apartment of the fire about 15 minutes after it had begun. And at that point, all I had heard in my head was that these fires were traveling full football fields in minutes. My area was in an evacuation warning. All of the areas surrounding the fire were immediately evacuated. But thankfully, because I had planned to leave for the airport right after this date, I had already passed. So I just thought, I need to go leave for the airport now. And I'm so glad I did during that time frame because I texted my family the photos of what was happening. I unplugged everything from my apartment because I heard that's something you're supposed to do. Brought everything I would have needed and got in the car and left. And I'm really glad I left when I did because my drive to the airport was about 30 minutes, but then when I got to the airport, I checked, and the drive, because everyone started evacuating from my place to the airport, turned into about an hour and a half. Then I got on my flight and it took off and we could see this from out the window, and then it landed in New York and I made it here safely. And the Sunset Fire apparently grew to about 50 to 60 acres, but it was put out before it made its way down the hill, I think past Hollywood Boulevard, which is one of the most populated places in that area. I do think it's an important time to remind people that I saw a viral TikTok about how the Hollywood Hills were now on fire, and a lot of the comments were saying that it's God saying something to Hollywood. LA has been a dark town for a long time, it deserves this, and things along that line. And I think whether you believe that or not, it's important to know that there are a lot of people who live in Hollywood and who live in LA who have nothing to do with the entertainment industry, who are from all different socioeconomic backgrounds and live at current different socioeconomic levels, and who moved to LA to make better lives for themselves. And it can be sad to see comments like that because I think what we can continue to use more of in this world currently is empathy. There's enough empathy to go around. You never run out of empathy. That being said, as I said at the start of this video, a lot of people have it way, way worse than I do, and I want to give you some ways to help these people. If you're in need of help, I want to direct you to some places that may be able to offer assistance. So to start off, I know Uber and Lyft are offering ride assistance to those those who need it. And I just want to note, I'm not getting paid by any of these companies or organizations to endorse what they're doing for fire assistance. I'm just doing this on my own volition. So Uber and Lyft are offering ride assistance to those who need it. For Uber, you can use the code WILDFIRE25. For a free Lyft ride, it's in all caps CA Fire Relief 25. Here are some of the apps to get to stay aware of anything you might need to know around these times, whether it's a notification about evacuations or if it's just information on what could be happening in your area. This is the power bank I got. This company, Anchor, has a lot of different options for power banks. Mine has a lamp that can run for up to 100 hours. It can charge your phone, it can charge your computer. They also have a lot of different options that run off of solar power as well. And they have a lot of different options that run through multiple different price ranges, so I'll link that below. This account on Instagram, in their bio, has a lot of ways to help out displaced pets. And there's also the Palisades Fire Canine Relief Fund that will help provide emergency shelter and safety, medical care, food and essentials, and shelter support for animals in need. I will continue to donate and stay updated on the ways that I can help out. I will also continue to update you on ways you can help out and keep you updated on ways you can receive assistance. My heart goes out to you if you've been directly affected more so by these fires or by anything. The world can just handle more love. And there's room for more love. There always is. All my love to Club Chris, all my love to everyone, and I will see you next week.